And because Jesus was the master of the first response principle, he was the master. They failed because the power to decide the direction of each conflict rested with the responder. The power to decide whether the conflict goes this way or that way is with you who is insulted. Let's assume your wife insults you and says to you, you are a dog. You are a dog. In fact, you just short of a tail and barking. That's all what you need to be a complete dog. And he says that to you. You are the husband. You have the power to decide where that goes. You have the power to decide where that goes. And let me tell you something else. Anger is not a spontaneous reaction. It has never been. There's no one who just gets angry. Anger is a thought-through process. Quickly as it is. It's quick. It's a thought-through process. Now this person is saying, I'm a dog. I'm just short of I'm just short of barking and a tail. And you draw the picture of a dog in front of you. And you see this. Is this what my wife is saying I am? And then you create drama. And the drama is not from what she said, it's what you have drawn. That's where the drama comes from. You are actually reacting from your own drama. You're being angry from the drama that you created in your mind. Not what has been said. Because you know you're not a dog, isn't it? You know you're not a dog. And the simple answer would just be, no, you're making a mistake, I'm not. That's your big mistake. That's your big mistake. The biggest mistake is to say to me, I'm a dog. Because I'm not one. And that determines the direction of the conflict. But it does not. Because we're very angry people. We're ready. There's some, we're angry for things that we don't know why we're angry. But we're angry. What touches move. Ever ready. We are ready to hear when we're being insulted. Even when the intention is not there to insult us. But we can pick up where the insult is. There's no intention of insulting us. You already pick it up that I'm being insulted here. So we need to deal with this anger within us. We need to deal with this anger. Some has reasons, some it comes out of experience. I mean, I also thought about what the interaction we had on Thursday. And I was saying to myself, but why didn't I just respond? Why did I respond the third time? Why didn't I just say to my wife, the appointment? Because the third time I didn't even respond properly. For some reason, I don't know. My response the third time was, the appointment is between 9 and 9:30. And now when we're reflecting about it, we're saying, let's talk about it. Because this is what we say. If we have an argument about something, later on we go back to it and say, let's go back to the argument we had. Why did we have an argument about this? And I can tell you now the reason why you have anger. It's because you have so much unfinished business. You have so much unfinished business. Your boxing match has not ended. You box and box and box and go out of the ring to go and get more energy for the next fight that you're going to have. And when the next fight you're going to have, you start where you have got finished and start this fight. So the best way to deal with issues is finish this argument completely. And we have designed something that says, if we fight, at the end of it, because we're going to fight, at the end of the fight, we need to say, but what were we fighting about? us to fight. And in the process of doing that, we ask two questions which those who are writing, I would say they must write. We ask two questions. The first question is, what went well in our argument? What went well in our argument? And the second question is, what could have gone better? What went well? What could have gone better? And what went well in our discussions would be, well, even though we were angry to each other, we didn't raise the voice to each other, we didn't shout at each other, we didn't insult each other, we're still respectful. That's what went well. What could have gone better? Probably we could have listened to each other more. Probably you could have allowed me to say what I said. Probably you shouldn't have answered in this way. That's what could have gone better. Now we are dealing with the next fight. This one is dead. This one is dead. We have closed it. So some of your pain comes from unfinished business that you have not dealt with. And can I suggest to you that you actually take that as homework? When you get home, sit down with each other and say, we have unfinished business. Let's deal with unfinished business and put it behind us so that we can start moving forward. They failed because the power, as I said, Luke 20, 19 to 26 is that scripture of the Pharisees coming to Jesus and saying to him, should we pay taxes? And they knew very well that if Jesus says, no, don't pay taxes, he's not a friend of Caesar. He may be arrested. But if he says, no, you must pay taxes, the poor are going to rise against him and say, but how do you say we must pay taxes to a Roman government when in fact we are poor? So whatever answer Jesus could have given, it's that thing of saying, you say yes, you are damned, you say no, you are still damned. And here Jesus answered in that passage. If you have not read it, read it. Read it. It will equip you in how to deal with things that come to you that are difficult. Because Jesus' answer in that passage was, can you give me a denarius? What is in the denarius? Whose head is there? And they said, well, it's Caesar's head. And Jesus said, well, you better give what belongs to Caesar, and give what belongs to God. And they couldn't go any further. They couldn't go any further. So, can you see the power of the responder? The responder is powerful. Don't give away that power, because that's the problem. We give away the power. We give away the power, and when we give away the power, no one between us has the power to arrest what we do. And then it becomes a mess. The implications of following Jesus' example are huge. Your wife or husband sin does not give you free license to sin in return and confess. If you are insulted, it doesn't mean you must insult back. If you believe you are undermined, it doesn't mean you must undermine back, because you are not contributing effectively. You are a spoiler. You are this thing called a spoiler. Because you have the power to direct things. So you need to think through how to direct things. By following the principle of first response, we are being called to take a provocative comment and redirect it. The second principle that helped Tando. Now remember, we're talking about Tando here. This is a case study of Tando, and this is a true story. This is a true story. The second principle that helped Tando is the principle of physical touch. It is difficult to be angry against someone while you are tenderly touching him or her, unless you are evil. Unless you are just evil. You touch someone, unless you are a Judas. Because that's what a Judas did, was to actually hug Christ so that he can betray him. It is difficult to be angry against someone while you are tenderly touching him or her, in particular in marriage. If you are touching your husband or your wife, it's difficult to be angry. And here we are trying to make sure that we're dealing with the anger that we have. And touching tenderly is one of those anger diminishing factors. A difficult but impossible time to apply this principle is, sorry? But not impossible. Did I say but impossible? Thank you. A difficult but not impossible. I think you are still awake. I thought you were. A difficult but not impossible time to apply this principle is after an argument has begun. That's what the difficulty is. The difficulty is not when the two of you are fighting. The difficulty is after the fight. Because you don't know what to say after the fight. Now you've fought, you've insulted each other because we're dealing with a situation which involved a pastor. And the wife insults the pastor. The pastor says, I go into my archives, try and find a bigger insult than the one that is thrown at me, so that I can throw something big. And the wife throws back, and the pastor says, I go back, and I say, you're saying, actually, whatever you're saying to me, you're saying it to your mother. Umfundisi. Can you see that man needs a fundis about the teach? There are many pastors who have no God in them. And how do we know? We know by their fruits. That's how we know. Because we're told that it is not shouting about being saved that will tell us whether you are saved. It is the fruit that comes out of you. It is the fruit. You can tell us how many times were you saved or what year you were saved. We're going to listen and wait for the fruit. And wait for the fruit. And it is the fruit that will make us believe you. And that fruit made us disbelieve this man that God has called him. Because if he was called by God, he would know that when you are dealing with your wife, the Bible says you are dealing with someone who is less than you. I'm not talking about feminism. Feminism comes from the devil. I'm talking about what the Bible says. It says when you are dealing with your wife, be careful. You are dealing with someone who's much more sensitive than you in spirit. You can't just say anything anyhow. You need to be sensitive. Now, if you know God, you know the Bible. And before you say something to your wife, you must say to yourself, I must not crush my wife with what I have to say. It doesn't matter how angry am I. I must make sure that I don't crush her spirit. Because when you crush her spirit, I can tell you, you will have difficulty to bring it back again to where it was. You'll have difficulty. So these are the things that we need to really, so it's difficult and not impossible after the argument has begun to apply this principle. However, a perfect time is when you know you are about to have a difficult conversation. I normally say, married men, married couples must make sure that they learn to talk to each other on small things, because there are big things that you need to talk about in marriage. Couples are sitting here, and I can bet you now that if there's one or two couples that are sitting here that have already went forward to say, if your mother or your father gets sick, what are we going to do? I'm I'm definitely sure. We don't talk about those things. We wait for them to happen and then have a big fight because now I'm emotional about it. My mother is sick, and you are busy saying that my mother must not come or must not come here. And we fight over that instead of talking about it now. Talk about it now whilst they are healthy. What are we going to do if your mother gets sick? Are we going to bring them here at home? Are we going to find a home for them? What are we going to do? So that when that happens, you don't have a fight. There are big things that marry people. Who must take the dirty bin when the trial for the bin is there? And you fight over that and you make that a big issue. It's a non-issue. We fight over non-issues when there are big issues waiting for us. What are we going to do with our children at this age? What happens if one of our children turns out to say, did you know that, mommy, I'm lesbian? What are you going to do as parents? Huh? This is not a joke. I was still at the MRC this time. And for some reason, I got to my phone, and when I got to my phone, I had a message from my 16-year-old daughter now. And the message was, Daddy, I'm sorry, I'm lesbian. And I thought, what is this now? And I was busy putting manuals together to go and run the course at Stanford in Vodelgem. What is this? Is the devil trying to attack here? Because he doesn't like what I'm doing. So I quickly phoned her mom and I said, have you spoken to Shumi? She said, no. And she said, why? And I said, look, I've just received an SMS from her saying, Daddy, I'm sorry, I'm lesbian. And she said, no, that's not true. That's not true. I know she likes boys. when we talk, I know she does talk about boys. And she would have spoken to me about that at least. Because my wife is at home for the past 18 years, so she's running the Bikwani PTY Ltd. She runs that company for the past 18 years. So she said, no, when I drop them and pick them up, we talk about everything and anything. She would have spoken to me. So I said to her, let me phone her. So I phoned her and show me, Dad, did you send me a message? No. Show me, did you send me a message? No, Dad, I didn't send you a message. But I got a message from your phone. No, but I didn't send you a message. Show me, who had your phone? No, my friend had my phone. And I said, she said, but what message is that? And I said, no, this message says, Dad, I'm sorry, I'm lesbian. She laughed. She said, no, it didn't come from me. It didn't come from me. And I can tell you that message shook me a bit. It shook me. Guys, we have bigger things to deal with. We have big things to deal with. Marriage is not for children. Don't play in grade R. Graduate. Don't play in grade R. There are people who get married after 10 years, they are still in grade R. They are still in grade R. And you feel the pain when you meet these couples. How long have you been married? 5 years. They are still in grade R. You hear what comes out of the mouth about each other. And you know what those difficult topics are in your marriage. Each one of us knows. Maybe it's a conversation about a specific child who is troubling and troublesome and so on, and you really don't know how to handle this child. Maybe it's about your in-laws. They are intruding. In-laws are official intruders in our marriages. We need to build boundaries, nice boundaries for them. Because officially, they are in. They are official intruders. But we can't have them have the last say in our marriages. They must know that this is not their marriage, this is our marriage. We will have the last say in our marriages. Your mother can't have the last say in your marriage. You must have the last say. You must tell Mama, if your mother-in-law had the last say in your own marriage, don't practice it in mine. You allowed your mother-in-law. I'm not going to allow you. I'm not going to allow you. And it's maybe difficult conversation about finances, because couples are doing strange things in marriage. The world has actually captured married couples. They're captured by the world. They follow principles of the world. People are married and they have 2 bank accounts at home. And they claim to be Christian. How do you have 2 bank accounts at home if you are Christians? God is saying, a man will leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife so that the 2 of them will be one. Bank account is one of those where you are actually going towards being one. It's when you bring in monies. You have our money. My wife doesn't have her own money. My husband doesn't have his own money. And then when you do that, you will not have, oh, my wife is earning more than me. In marriage, no one is earning more than the other. Because our money. It's our money. When it's our money, no one is earning more than the other. My wife has been home for 18 months. Yes. When you facilitate, you test your audience. There are people that I know who are quick to sleep. So when they shout first, I think I'm making something. My wife has been home for 18 years. And I can tell you now, I've never said to her, she's not bringing in any money. I'm the one who brings in money. No. She has access to it. We have principles that we follow that are clear. She can't just buy anything with our money unless we've agreed about it. I can't just buy anything with our money unless we've agreed on it. The only time that we have freedom, the 2 of us have freedom, and we agreed that we're not going to ask each other. If we have to give to God, we don't ask each other. If I'm in a church and really something says to me, you better plant here, I decide I'm going to plant whatever I think I'm going to plant. And tell her after that. The same thing with her. But on everything else, we have parameters. These are the parameters that you can spend without talking to me. I can spend without talking to you. But beyond this, you need permission from each other. And that's what God has not brought money into marriage to divide you. He brought money into marriage to bring you together. When you run away from joining money, you are actually depriving God the glory. Yes. You are depriving God the glory to show the world that I can take 2 people who are different and say, live here together, bring your money together, and they don't fight. They live well. During these times, You should sit down during the time of difficult conversations. You should sit down and pray together holding hands. Continue to hold hands or touch each other after the prayer. This approach allows you to quickly observe when you drift into an argument. It allows you to quickly observe. And if you are holding each other tenderly, it's difficult to argue in a heated way. It's difficult to argue in a heated way. You start to see when you are drifting into an argument, because if you are holding hands, the handshake is now going to be something that someone wants to start to prepare to fight now. Someone wants to prepare to fight. So the physical separation is a visual and physical indication that your conversation is no longer glorifying God. When you don't touch each other in the same tenderly way that you have touched each other in the beginning, and you are starting to really loosen, then your conversation is starting not to glorify God. You have a choice at that point. It's either you stop touching to start fighting, or you continue touching to stop fighting. And can I also say to you, probably the best thing to do at that point, you can pray together. When you can start to see that there's heat that is building up now in these discussions, the best way of dealing with the heat is to say, can we pray? Let's pray. Take the heat out. And we don't do that. We don't do that. You see, we push the confrontation to the boiling point. We push the confrontation to the boiling point. It's like that woman at Spare, that black woman with this white man at Spare. I have never seen a stupid black person like that. How do you, I don't care whether it's a black man or a green man, or how do you stand up to a man big as that, the way this woman was doing? You know what I've advised my wife? Long time ago, I said to my wife, if you are driving and there's something happening with another man, never argue with another man. Never argue with her. She was scratched by taxis in Mbulelo, and she stopped on the side, and the other man stopped. But are you going to leave this? And she said, no, my husband said I must never argue with him. In particular, no takes. Because if your wife argues with another man like the one there, you may arrive there and you are expected now to fight. And when you look at this man, the expectation is there that my husband has arrived. And your wife has a blow iron, and you better arrive there when things are still balanced. And then you can get into some engagement and all that. It's because I did a lot of fighting when I was young. I don't know how to fight now anymore. I really don't know. Ever since I accepted Christ, I don't know how to fight. When people start to want to fight, I think, hey, how do you fight again? Where do you start? That's why I decide to run away. So you really have a choice at this point. Just as it is essential to have daily time with God. Now we're moving to the principle of time and proper timing. Just as it is essential to have daily time with God, so also is necessary to make time each day to listen to your spouse. It's a difficult one. Because you know men, this is how a man's brain works. For this presentation will come to you. You can say, if you write, you can write if you want, but you'll get the whole presentation. This is how a man's brain is made up. A man has 3 boxes in his brain, and the top box has 3 quadrants, so to speak. And the one quadrant is work, the other one is home, the next one is church or sport. And none of these quadrants are attached to each other. And then the next quadrant, which is the bigger one, has in it sex written big in red, sex. And then the bottom one is written empty. Now, if you know how a woman's brain is made up, if a woman's brain is made, if you remember that advert of the insurance, with wires. This wire is attached to home and mother and pick and pay, pharmacy, homework, supper, and it's just everything is. So women, because of that, are capable of talking about three things at the same time. And we are not. We are not. When you start to talk about, I'm busy listening to this and the person is already talking about something else. And I'm starting to think, but I didn't understand the first one that we were talking about. Now you're introducing the second one. And this is what men do. When we get to that point, we just our minds just run into the empty box. We just go to the empty box. And that's when your wife is saying to you, are you listening to me? And you say, oh, what were you saying? It's because you just can't take it. You just went right into the empty box, and you kept quiet and think, I can't deal with this. So you need time to listen to your spouse. If we make it a priority, we will find time. You can't say there's no time. We hear that Jesus woke up very early in the morning to spend time with his heavenly Father. If you read Mark 1:35, we need to give similar priority to our marriage relationship. There are many ways to make time for each other. You can find the most suitable to you. Some take a walk. Some go out to a movie, ice cream, coffee. Some take a drive to nowhere. I know of people who do that. And you will hear them in your gate. Are you home? No, we were just passing. They have taken a drive to nowhere. And they don't have children, those people. So they forget that some of us have children. We're spending time with our children. Some go out for a weekend or a trip away. We call this opportunity bed. You must swap beds. You can't be sleeping in the same bed forever. There must be a weekend where you sleep in some other bed that you have hired somewhere. So opportunity bed. And some travel together to work. And we know of a couple who works together in town. And after they have attended the course, they started to say, you know what? It's better if we travel together to work. I'll go and drop you at work. No. They were not in town. The wife was in Plumstead and the husband was working in town. And they decided to use one car and go and drop the wife in Plumstead, drive to work in town. And this is the amazing time they had. I know that there are those days where you wish you would be driving on your own. There are those days where you think, I'm not in the mood to even say something today. I'm just so annoyed. Yes. And what about time for the family? Some start a tradition of dinner every evening. The father or mother are home. Because some of us work hard, we travel, mothers travel and fathers travel. And if you are part of those, to make time for family, because this is part of communication. To make time for family, you have dinner every evening that I'm home. Reviews for schoolwork on certain days. We've started that with our 16-year-old and 13-year-old on every Wednesday. They present to my wife and I about what they have done on Monday up to Wednesday in class. by period. And they also talk to us about the challenges they may have in some of the subjects. And then we repeat a review on Sunday. Before they go, they then talk to us about their schoolwork from Thursday and Friday on Sunday. And they do a full presentation. And I can tell you, it is one of the best things we have done. It's one of the best things. At least I also get to know what's happening and so on and so on. And if you don't have time, I would suggest that to you, because you are training your kids also. You are starting to train your kids to be able to stand up and present, and you ask questions and all those sorts of things. So some do reviews. Some Saturdays or certain days are family days, and those days are protected from any intruders. And some go to church as a family. Some go to church. No one must stay behind. Research tells us that when the mother goes to church and the father not, 39%, only 39% of the family will go to church if the mother goes and the father stays at home. But when the father goes to church, 89% of the family goes. That is why the tagline of his circle says, save the world, but men first. Save men first, because if you save men first, they are high impact. The world will be easier to save if men are saved first, because of their impact. The principle, the first principle is the principle of testing understanding. Understanding can be enhanced if we measure it throughout a conversation. Don't sit there whilst you don't understand some of the things that are being said and wait until the entire conversation ends. Test whether you understand. Ask questions. Have you ever meant one thing by what you said, but the person you were talking to heard something else? It can make for very frustrating communication. If you are not sure if your spouse is getting what you are talking about, check to see if you hear this phrase a lot. What did you mean by that? When your spouse keeps on saying, but what did you mean by that? You must know that if he says that 60% of the time, you must know your spouse is not hearing you for 60% of the time. He doesn't understand what you are saying 60% of the time. Testing can help you check whether you are hearing your spouse properly, because you must hear the spouse properly. Once your spouse makes a point, repeat it to him or her. Say something like, so what I hear you saying is, and repeat what is said. Or are you saying, repeat what is said. Then in your own words, tell your spouse what you understand to have been said. Hearing what is said and understanding it are two different processes. So you've heard what is being said. Check for understanding. Then the most important part of testing comes when you allow your spouse to either affirm or correct what you have said. As you learned this principle, you will often not like your spouse's negative or inaccurate summaries of your statements. Can I tell you what I've heard? And when your spouse is repeating what you said, some of the things, that's when spouses fight over. You know, you hear spouses saying, you know, it's good when people tell the truth, because I didn't say all these things that you say I said. It's when the spouse is repeating what she or he has heard. And you must respect that. You must respect it. Don't say that the other person is lying. We have people who come before us and would say, okay, Dada, can you talk to us? I mean, what challenges do you have? And the husbands are normally short. Because most of the time, they are the criminals responsible. So they are short. No, I don't know what the problem is. I just heard my wife said, we are seeing someone here. And so I thought, let me come also. Strictly speaking, I have no problem. This is what husbands do. I have no problem. And you give the wife, you are there for 2 hours, just listening to the wife. And it's just, really, we are poor bunch. There's nothing in the house. Even the ones that have nothing to do with what we're about, they are put on the table. And the men, after that, the men, you hear the men saying, you know, when we try to resolve things, people must be honest with what they say. Because what my wife is saying is not true. And you don't know, I mean, the wife has spoken for 2 hours. And this is what my wife is saying is not true. And if for the whole 2 hours it's not true, or is there a particular area that is not true? And when you start to say, what is not true, and you start to hear, no, he has his own understanding of issues. The wife has her own understanding of issues. And this is critical. This is critical. And make note of this. You must never make yourself the standard. And let me explain what that means. Be careful of making yourself the standard. For instance, you've said something to your wife, and your wife is upset about what you said. And you say to her, what is upsetting in what I said? You're actually making yourself the standard because it's not upsetting you. Anyone must not be upset by it. You are not the standard. If the other person gets upset with what you said, you need to apologize for that. Even if you believe so, that you know what I said cannot upset a fly. Even if you believe it cannot upset a fly. But your wife is upset about it. Your wife is upset. The best thing you can do is to say, I'm sorry about this. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. If I said it and in an upsetting way, that's what I'm apologizing for. Men are very quick in making themselves standards and say, but you don't I mean, why is this upsetting? There's nothing upsetting in what I've said. And in fact, it is true. You know that it is true. You know that it is true. In time, you will learn that his or her summaries actually are quite accurate. Your reactions are negative because you do not like how you get exposed. The point of testing is not to be right or to defend yourself, but to know that you are hearing accurately and understand properly. If you seek to understand rather than to make yourself understood, then you are primed for success with the principle of testing. It is in understanding that some of your formed perceptions are corrected and help you see clearly. It is in really understanding what is being said that your perceptions that you had, because some of us get into a discussion with the end in mind. Not all discussions are meant to be started with the end in mind. There are discussions that you go in open-minded with no end. You just get into the discussion to see how far the discussion is going to take